Hey everybody, it's Chris, and I am going to do another color-inspired pour today. I think if you've seen some of my other videos that I've done with this technique, if you will, I went on Pinterest and pinned a bunch of color combinations. Some are colors that I've done in the past. A lot of the color combinations are colors that I really like, probably, if I'm being totally honest. But this was a color inspiration that when I saw it, I thought of my best friend, Susan. Susan loves daisies, and I love turquoise, so I thought this was a win-win for both of us. But this is a color palette that I chose, and it has the pretty daisies with the turquoise in the background. So the colors that I'm doing today are, So the colors I'm doing today are Prussian Blue, which is this darker blue, and then I'm using the Artist Loft Turquoise, which is the turquoise, and I've not done anything to those to try to change the color. Luckily, those I think are pretty doggone close to what they need to be. I did mix some custom pearl white, and my custom pearl white is the Liquitex Basics Iridescent Medium along with the Artist Loft Flow Acrylic White, just so that you don't want to do it by itself because there isn't really any color in the medium. You're supposed to use it with paint. And then I mixed that with my pouring medium, and I thought that this color really wasn't a true white. I felt like it was I kind of feel like it's going to be kind of the dewy part of the flower. So I thought the pearl white would be pretty and give it a little bit of bling at the same time. This is the yellow that I mixed up for the lighter color of yellow, and this one was a little bit harder for me. I had kind of a tough time with it. I ended up mixing the yellow medium with lemon yellow, and then I felt like it was way too yellow. So then as I was looking at it, I thought, gosh, it looks an awful lot like the Naples yellow hue, but just a little more yellowy, if that's a color, yellowy. So I ended up mixing that, and then I felt like it was a little too dark, so then I added in some Artist Loft white. I don't think that I'm in the exact shade that it should be, but I do feel like it's a pretty yellow, and I think it'll be okay in the pour. And then my final color is this kind of golden orange color. And this one was another one that kind of gave me some fits. And I feel like I think it's pretty darn close to what it needs to be. This ended up being the Azo orange and yellow medium. And I believe I added a little bit of Artist Loft Flow Acrylic White to this one as well. And this one actually is a tiny bit thick, so I'm just going to add a little bit more water to this. I think when I was mixing my paints, I was going directly from the tubes and from my pre-mixed paint, so some of these are a little bit thicker than what they should be. So let me just add a little bit of white to a little bit of water to this and get it ready. So I'm working on a 12 by 16 canvas today. I'm going to do 3 flip cups, and I'm going to set this to the side so I don't get paint on my iPad, because that would be very bad and would make me cry. So I'm doing 3 flip cups. They are 7-ounce flip cups, and I'm just going to spray some of the WD-40 silicone spray in the bottoms of the cups. I'm not putting enough in there to really create cells. I just want, and I'll show you after I spray it. So I just want enough so that the paint releases from it. You can see that it's not pooled in the bottom of the cup by any means. I don't want to create cells. I don't have any silicone in my paint, so the only silicone really that's being used is just in the spray. I do know that if my blue and yellow mixes together, that I will get green. So, which a little bit of green in a flower pour would be okay, but I want to try to avoid that if at all possible. So I'm going to start in each cup with Prussian Blue. The Prussian Blue should give it some nice effects as well. And then I'll layer in my turquoise. And I mix all of my paints up in condiment bottles. I purchased these condiment bottles at Walmart. They're just $1 a piece, and I really love them. I love that I can mix my paint and be ready to go and do a quick pour if I want. Okay, so this is my pearl white, and I want to make sure that my pearl white is in between the blue and the yellow. So I'm not going to put a super heavy layer of this in here because it's going to end up being in here a couple of times between the yellow and the blues. So the next is my kind of lemony yellow color. And I know I'm just going to spoon this in because I do not want it to mix down through the blue paint that I already have in there. So I know from previous experience with the lemon yellow, this is a Soho Artist Loft paint that I purchased from Jerry's Artorama. And I do know that when I used this in another pour, it really gave some crazy like webbing effects. So I'm hoping that it'll have kind of that same effect in this pour as well. All right, so there's my yellow, and then I'm going to come back in with kind of my golden orange color. And once again, I'm going to be really careful about layering these guys on top, because you'll find if you mix colors in a cup like this and pour in, I don't feel like you have as much control over the weight of the paint, and it tends to kind of mix down through the other colors that you have in the cups already. Unlike with my condiment bottles, I feel like I can kind of control the weight of the paint a little bit better, and it's coming out in a much thinner stream. Okay, now I'm going to go back in with my pearl white so that I can block that blue and yellow from mixing if I can. I mean, it's obviously going to mix when we flip the cups over in the painting, but I want to try to avoid that if I can and try to keep those colors separated. And then I'll come back in with the Prussian blue. My goal is to have about 5 to 6 ounces of paint in each cup. I find that with a 12 by 16 canvas, that's plenty of paint. I try not to waste my paint, but I do want to make sure that I have enough paint on there so that when I start moving it around, I'm not fighting to try to cover my canvas up. And this is the turquoise. And then I'm going to come back in with the pearl again and make sure that I have that layer covered so that I'm not mixing in with my yellow. And I may not have enough paint to do 3 layers. I might need to do a 3rd layer here to get enough paint, but I'm going to come pretty darn close. So I'm just going to make this layer a little bit heavier with the lemon yellow color because I've got quite a bit of that mixed up. And actually I probably could pour in now because once my paint levels get higher up in the cup, then you can safely pour in and not worry about mixing down through, as long as you're gentle with it. Now, if I stay close to my cup, then that should keep it from mixing down through, which is kind of a fun little experiment. If you're new to pouring, try pouring from up above and see how well your paint mixes down in. Sometimes that can help you to create some effects as well, rather than keeping it close so that you're getting the layers of color. Okay, so I'm going to come back in and do one more bit of the pearl because I think I want just a tiny bit more blue in there. Sometimes the yellow and the oranges can kind of take over in a pour, so I want to make sure that my blue is represented. Plus, I do know that my Prussian blue will give me some cool effects as well. It's one of the colors that kind of creates effects on its own. But I know that my pouring medium will also create effects for me too. So I'm not worried about having cells. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I think we definitely have about 6 ounces of paint in each one. I'm just going to set my paints over here to the side so that I don't tip those over and make sure that I've got my caps on. All right, and then I'm going to flip these guys over. I'll start with my one in the middle, and then I'll go to each corner. Oh, that's pretty nifty. Can you see the webbing stuff that's already created in that yellow? I think it's because of that yellow paint. So you can see that there's already, hopefully you guys can see this. I can try to pick it up a little bit too. Do you see how there's already cells like being created around the cups? The one on the left, not so much, just because I didn't have a lot of paint come out of that one. But you can totally see cells coming out over here already. So that's just the pouring medium. There's no silicone. So it's amazing to me what gets created just by the paint itself. Okay, I want to make sure I've got you guys in frame here. Okay, so I always start in the middle. My goal is to pull it back. I kind of like to slide it down to make sure that I can get to the bottom. And then I do have a little bit of paint in here, but I'm going to set this up here for right now. I might need that a little bit later, we'll see. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy too. So really what you want to do is you want to get it down to the bottom. This one didn't quite come down to the bottom, so I'm just going to go ahead and pour some of this paint out just to kind of help even that out. And then this guy, I kind of want a little bit to start at the top, and then I'm just going to pull it down. And there again, I'm a little bit thin down here, so I'm just going to kind of pour some of this paint out. Most of that will probably get tipped off anyway, so I'm not concerned that my pattern here isn't like the prettiest. Okay, so you can see that I've got green, which we kind of knew that was going to happen. But I do still have the blues and I still have the yellows. So I think the pearl white in between the layers definitely did help to retain some of those colors. It's quite pretty. It has a lot of cells coming up already. And you'll see like this webbing that's created. I think that's partially from the paint, or excuse me, the Prussian blue and that lemon yellow that I have. So I feel like this is a pretty big gap here. This is kind of starting to fill in. So this one cup has a little bit more paint in it. I'm just gonna go ahead and fill this in just a tiny bit so that I don't have to fight so much to try to get this area covered. And again, I'm not too concerned. As I pull it off, I kind of get some lines anyway. This is another area that could use a little bit of help, but I don't believe I have much left. Let's see if I can get a little bit out of this cup. So if I can help to cover up some of those spaces and get it flowing a little bit more before I start to tip, that's definitely better for the cause. There's not much paint left in this guy, I'll tell you. So I'm just gonna kind of let that flow out. So it's all gonna be in the tipping. So I think I'm gonna go to the top first to see if I can't get that to fill in, and then hopefully bring the weight of the paint back down to get this bottom edge covered. The side is already getting covered because it's pouring over the side, which is good. So I am going to go kind of to the left a little bit and see if I can get my paint to start filling in. I want to try to retain my lines, so I don't really want to try to push it over all the way to the left if I can help it. I do want to try to keep those lines on there. And I do want to try to get my corners covered as well. And that one down there, there we go. So then I'm just going to kind of let the weight of the paint come back down. I just slightly have it tipped. So I'm going to let my paint come back down, try to stretch out some of those cells a little bit. Hopefully the glare from the window is not too much for you. You can see I got a lot of the nice blue colors down here on the bottom, and I really would like to keep those in the painting, but we'll see what I get when I start to twist and turn this and get the paint to flow back down. It's very heavy on the yellow, which I was a little bit concerned with. Hopefully some of that blue fights its way back up, because it seems like anytime I do a painting with yellow in it, it's very easy for it to take over. All right, so I've kind of got that edge covered. Now I want to try and get my paint down to this lower left corner. And again, I've got my lines are kind of getting a little bit destroyed, but if I can just get that paint moving over here on the side, then I'm just gonna let it go off the corner and then pull it back. All right, so you can see there is not a lot of blue left in there. Not a lot of blue at all. I kind of feel like it needs more blue in it. So now the question is, do I futz with it and try to get some more blue showing? Because I really don't like that my blue is not really coming through on this painting. So I'm just going to pick up my paint off of the plastic and kind of touch up my corners, because my corners didn't get completely covered. If I thought the blue would come back up, I'd be okay with it, but I kind of feel like it's not going to. So I kind of feel like I want to pour a little bit more through it. So let me wipe my hands off a little bit here. I think what I want to do is maybe take one of my cups and put a little bit more blue in it and see if I can get a few stripes going with it maybe. So this just goes to show, if you don't like what you have, there's nothing wrong with going back and trying to fix it. So I'm just going to put some Prussian blue and my turquoise and the pearl white over here on the side. And then I think I'm going to dump just a little bit of white down through it, just my Artist Loft plain white paint, just to see if I can get some fun stuff going. And then I'm just going to see if I can pour some ribbons of blue through here to see if I can get a little more blue showing in this painting, because I really want the blue to show. The yellow is quite pretty, but the idea was to have that blue showing as well. There we go, that looks a little better. And put a little bit more up there. That's better. I like that a little bit better. And then I'm gonna see if I can stretch those bands out just a tiny bit. So I think we'll just go left to right. And when I added my blue paint in there, I did try to kind of follow the lines of the painting. All right, I'm gonna see if I can dump some of this down and off, because obviously I have more paint on here than what I need. And then I'm gonna kind of let it slowly come down here to the right to get some crazy cell action just with the blue and the white. Okay, so I've definitely got a little more blue showing now that I added that extra blue to it. I'm happy with that now. Okay guys, so there's our pour. Let me pull the inspiration back up so you can see the colors again. So there's the colors. It's definitely very heavy on yellow. Holy cow, is it heavy on the yellow. And there's not a lot of white showing, which probably should have had a little bit more white compared to what the daisies look, but the yellow is definitely there. So I might futz with this a little bit more and try and get a little more blue in there. We'll see. I'm not super happy with how much yellow is in this, so I don't know. I'm not sure that this was successful, but it definitely is the colors. It's just, plus there's a ton of green in it, but I don't really know how you would avoid that without when you're using blue and yellow. So, well, that concludes another color inspiration. If you have any questions, please let me know, and thank you so much for watching.